The Albanese government, it is so obsessed with race and victim politics. In fact, so much so that our Foreign Minister Penny Wong yesterday gave a speech in London telling the British they should be sorrier about their terrible colonial history. I have to say, how absolutely rude of her. And the fact...
Sometimes such stories can feel uncomfortable for those whose stories they are and for those who hear them. But understanding the past enables us to better share the present and the future. It gives us the opportunity to find more common ground than if we stay sheltered in narrower versions of our country's histories.
Where does she get off? Britain's been apologising for years now, and it does absolutely no good at all, right? It just makes the country look even weaker and even guiltier. No one goes up to say, thanks, it's all over now, between us, we're good. It doesn't work that way. And Britain has in fact been apologising too much, in my view. Yes, there was an awful lot wrong with colonialism, but there was also some good, the heritage in particular. And Wong, more than most of us, should actually know this, instead of now playing the victim herself of those wicked British.
My father is descended from Hakka and Cantonese Chinese. Many from these clans laboured in the British North Borneo Company, in tin mines and plantations for tobacco and timber. Many worked as domestic servants for British colonists, as did my own grandmother.
Wow, is that some rewriting of history? Shall I do a fact check for you? Penny Wong's Chinese family weren't the victims of colonialism. They were, if anything, the beneficiaries. Most Hakka and Cantonese families in Sabah originally migrated there from China for work. They went there after the British North Borneo Company bought the territory from a sultan, the Sultan of Brunei, in 1881. And this British company set up a lot of businesses that needed workers. And when the British government took it over as a protectorate and a colony, they continued this. They needed Chinese workers. The Chinese were perfect. They wanted this opportunity. They wanted it, or they would have stayed back in China. They were not colonised. They joined the colonisers. They joined just like Penny Wong and her parents later joined Australia to again join and enjoy the fantastic freedoms and opportunities that were first built here by those British colonialists. In fact, Wong's father won a scholarship from the Colombo Plan, which was founded, by the way, by the British Commonwealth, again created by those colonialists. And Wong herself got a scholarship to one of Adelaide's finest schools, Scotch College. I would have dreamed of that myself as a boy in South Australia. That colonial heritage there, yet again. And here she is, the Foreign Minister of a country founded by these colonialists. You try getting to the top of China's politics, by the way, if you are a woman like Penny Wong. And speaking of China, aren't we actually begging Britain to build us a nuclear sub or 2 or 3 or 4 to protect us from this dangerous Chinese dictatorship? So it turns out those British colonialists are still worth quite a bit to us. And maybe Penny Wong should criticise them less and count our blessings more, because I think she'd do a lot more good that way and maybe win a few more friends for Australia where it counts. Joining me now is Bella de Brera, the Director of the Foundations of Western Civilization Program at the Institute of Public Affairs. Bella, great to see you again. Look, Penny Wong is saying Britain's got to face up to its uncomfortable colonial past, particularly in the Indo-Pacific. It's been apologising. It's been apologising for years. The royal family's been apologising. How much more facing up does it have to do?
Oh, good evening, Andrew. It's lovely to join you again this evening. I can't quite believe the speech that Penny Wong gave in London. She's got one job at the moment, and that job is to go and get England to engage in what is arguably the most dangerous situation that we have in the Asia-Pacific. But she's not done that. She's gone to London to tell everyone how terrible the British Empire is, how ghastly colonialism is, the sins of colonialism, white supremacy, racism, how terrible Australia is. What she's done is she's engaging in woke diplomacy. And Andrew, who wins in woke diplomacy? China. China is going to be absolutely delighted in what Penny Wong the speech has given in London. The Chinese Communist Party likes to beat this drum of 100 years of humiliation at the hands of Western powers in order to shame the West and to excite sort of nationalism in China. Penny Wong has literally beaten the drum of the Chinese Communist Party.
That's, I think you've got a point there. I mean, you know, the Foreign Minister of one of Britain's closest allies goes to Britain and tells us it's got a shameful past it's got to apologise for. What the hell? She's not the Foreign Minister of Britain, she should be reminded. And the thing is, Bella, when I look at her family history, which she cited in this speech, not dragging it up willy-nilly, she herself cited, she said her father's side of the family had a bad experience of British colonialism. They were from China, and they then went to work in Borneo and Sabah, which is now part of Malaysia, for the British North Borneo Company, working in tin mines and plantations and working as domestic servants for British colonists. But what I don't get is that how does that prove that colonialism is bad when her Chinese ancestors actually left China precisely to get jobs with a British company in another country? I mean, surely if colonialism offered nothing, they'd have stayed back home in China.
You're absolutely right, Andrew, but what Penny Wong is indulging in is this very fashionable anti-colonialism, this movement that seeks to show that there was nothing good about the British Empire and that colonialism, as I said earlier, can only be sort of summarised in terms of white supremacy and racism and all the negative things. And of course, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it has a perfectly unblemished record. I mean, that would be absurd. But it's equally absurd for someone like Penny Wong to stand up and indulge in what is really an abuse of history and just present one side of history, which is the dark pages of colonialism, where she's actually a walking, talking example of the benefits of colonialism and what the British Empire gave to Australia. She's in one of the most privileged positions that she can directly link back to the British Empire, but you know, of course, she doesn't want to admit this, and I would make the broader point that when these politicians get up and talk about history, it's not about history. You know, they're like many of her Labour comrades, they're proudly ignorant of history and very much blinded by woke prejudice. What they seek to achieve is political purposes. It's got nothing to do with history.
And it's so strange, isn't it? I mean, if she'd family had actually stayed in Malaysia, for instance, I wonder how she could have succeeded in politics, given she's of Chinese descent, when they've got these laws favouring Malay people in particular. I mean, it's just so extraordinary. I think, have we overdone the apologising and perhaps neglected to mention the benefits of the Western civilisation that the British, for one, have done so much to enhance?
Yes, look, absolutely. And Penny Wong wouldn't have this position in Australian society were it not for the values and institutions such as equality before the law and you know, women and men are equal before the law, and it's blind to race. Australia does not see race. All Australians are equal. But she refuses to see this, and I think you're right. We need to start talking more positively about Western civilization and British institutions and the values of Western civilization. But unfortunately, the woke narrative is so strong now that if you come out in public and you even remotely defend colonialism or the British Empire, you're condemned as a racist. That's how in deep the woke ideology is in our institutions and, as you see, in our government.
Well, all the more reason that we should have a Foundations of Western Civilization program at the Institute of Public Affairs. Bella de Brera, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.